What you're about to watch is unlike any video I've ever released. So join me as I cut the subscriber's hair. If I succeed or make mistakes, it doesn't matter. It's all here. There are no edits in this video. So grab your favorite drink and hang out with us in the first episode of, I think what I'm gonna call, The Uncut Cut. That's so corny. Anyway. Okay, so tell me what is going on with your hair.
Well, I have some layers in it.
Okay.
They get very shelfy here. You can see they just get sort of a chunk and then there's a piece below it. Same thing over here, chunk, piece below it.
Okay.
I like having some bangs because my forehead is taller.
Okay.
But when I get a lot of sort of up and over like this when they get longer.
Okay.
But when I get too much on my forehead, it starts looking like bangs, very dated. Very triangular with bangs.
Got it.
That's what I'm trying to avoid, is that triangle look. And so I kind of like the movement around the front. I like having some flow to it. I like having some bangs, but they either go down and flip or they go up and over.
Okay.
It's making sense to you.
1,000%. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. And we'll talk more about that because there's part of that is probably from the cut. Part of it might be from just the styling process and like very small nuances to the way we style it, but we'll kind of walk you through that.
Okay.
So talk to me a little bit about just like the length right now. Do you, don't think about the layering, but just how long it is. Do you like it? Does it bug you? Do you want to go shorter?
I like this length. Slightly shorter is okay. When it starts getting kind of collarbone length, it just, again, gets real triangular. It makes me feel older than I am. It makes me feel less feminine. So I like a little flow here. I like it a little bit longer. Longer than this, it starts to bug me.
Got it. Walk me through your day-to-day styling process. Do you shampoo in the morning, shampoo at night?
Shampoo, well, it depends. Either one. I'll do it whenever. I let it air dry for about half an hour, and then I blow it dry with those vented brushes, the black ones with the little red knobs on the end, the vented brushes.
Oh, kind of like...
Yeah, like that kind,
okay.
yes. So I'll blow it dry with that. I use a round brush just to kind of get a little shape to it.
Okay.
And that's about it. I put a little bit of oil on it, and I put sometimes a little bit of the styling paste just on the ends to make it a little piecier instead of so perfect.
You put all that stuff on after it's dry or prior to drying it?
After it's dry. The only thing I put on before drying it is just some leave-in conditioner and some hair drying protectant spray.
Do you do the leave-in conditioner every day?
I do each time I wash. I wash probably about every 2-3 days.
Okay. And on the days in between where you're not washing, what does your styling process look on those?
Same kind of thing. I'm just trying to brush it into round brush a little bit, drier, probably frying it a little bit, just trying to rework the drying into something that doesn't look like I just got out of bed.
Absolutely. You have a lot of hair. You have a lot of fine hair, but you've got a lot of hair. Each individual hair is actually pretty fine. Oh, really? Which, yeah, I mean, like, there's some coarseness to it, but it's like, yeah, I mean, look, they're surprisingly, like, usually I would expect to see it like quite a bit thicker in individual strands, which is not a bad thing at all, but it is something to pay attention to because it does actually, like, I always feel bad when I say this, right? Because I think it's because I tell my wife this and I think she got mad at me one time, maybe that's why. But a lot of fine hair is really challenging to get volume in. It can be some of the hard, and when I say volume, I mean like, so people will look at you, I'm gonna have you sit back a little bit. People will look at you and go, well, you've got a lot of hair, and so you're getting a lot of volume. But in reality, you're getting a lot of fullness.
Yes.
That's not volume, right? As you get it, you understand. Yes. Volume is having volume where you want volume and not having it where you don't want it.
That's my struggle, is I get it very flat up here. It'll be, especially as the days go on, it's just flat like this. Yeah. And then it gets triangular, flat and triangular, because I get the fullness down here. I'm not getting, and I watched one of your videos that talked about this, about the movement in here, volume in here. Yeah. That's what I don't have.
Yeah, definitely. And I can tell you there's a few reasons that's happening, which we're going to get into when we cut it. Okay. Also, some things I'm actually very excited about with you or her specifically, because we're going to be able to hit on some topics that I know are a struggle for a lot of people. Some words like texturizing, stuff like that people get very fearful of. Yeah. And your hair actually needs it, partly to kind of address some of the choppiness that you're seeing. We need to blend that in a little bit. And the way that we're going to achieve that is through specific techniques a lot of people have tried once, didn't like, and now are terrified to do it, especially with any kind of fine hair. Okay, so
Somebody texturized it for me with a razor, and it just got fuzzy and poofy and.
I'll explain that to you as well. We'll walk through the whole process. I'll tell you probably more than you want to know about hair. You'll probably hate me for that by the end of it, but you'll learn a lot about it. Talk to me about. So I know that you feel like the front is a little bit choppy. You do like a lot of movement and texture there.
I've always described it as face framing layers. I don't know if that's the correct term to use, but I like a little movement around my face. I don't like it to just be straight.
You're good?
These bangs are a lot longer than I had. I started growing them out a bit because I did have very much bangs, just thick across my head. My usual stylist told me that I have too much in the bangs area and it needed to be a little wispier. I'm not sure if I need less or if I just need something different.
When you look in the mirror right now, tell me, first of all, is there anything that you like? What do you love most about your face? And is there anything that you feel insecure about your face shape or anything like that? Anything that you want to draw attention away from? And anything that we want to focus attention to?
Attention to my eyes.
You have beautiful eyes.
Thank you.
Like legitimately, they're striking. Like, did you notice this too? Her eyes?
Yes.
Like, what is it? They're very bright, like crystal blue.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you love your eyes. What else?
Drawing attention away from this that's getting a little thicker as I get older.
I don't know what you're talking about.
As I'm trying to lean way forward and stretch my neck.
Choir.
Yes.
Preaching. Yes. Choir. Get it. I get it.
So trying not to have all the emphasis here, trying to have more of the emphasis up here.
Okay.
So I've tried to do the strong bang before, and it just looks, like I said, really dated on me. It just looks, I call it, Midwestern housewife look, where I'm just kind of.
Do you typically find, so face framing layers, do you find that you try to style them actually to frame your face, or are you bringing them off of your face?
I used to round brush under, which again kept looking very dated. I have started round brushing out just to kind of flip it out a little bit. Movement a little. This is day 2 hair, so I washed it yesterday. So I still get some movement, but it falls pretty quickly.
So you're styling it back. Your goal is to have it come back kind of off your face and open you up. You're just struggling a little bit with the process to achieve that.
Yes.
Okay. And I love that because we're going to hit on that for sure. Good. Especially after what you just said. I've got some tips on that are going to make things a lot easier for you, I think.
Yeah, I don't know how much of my issues are the cut and how much is the style. I'm sure.
Oh, it's a little bit of both. Honestly, there's some things that you have to have a good foundation for the cut. And I'm not saying that I'm not here to trash talk a stylist, right? Sure. So the goal is never to say like your stylist did this wrong. That's not what I'm here for. But their goal is to say that there are some things that I think that we could change about the haircut that would make it a little bit easier for you to manage and that would address some of the concerns that you're having. But also, once we have that foundation, I also need you to show you the specific process that's going to make your drying process a little bit more efficient and easier to manage. Because right now, there's some things that you're doing that are actually fighting a little bit against you. But if I'm completely honest, you don't really have the foundation to build on anyway. So even if you were, like some of these things, even if you did them a little bit wrong, if we had a really strong foundation in the cut, you'd be able to get away with a little bit of that. It would get a little bit better result. But right now, we don't have that liberty. Right? So that's kind of like the bigger thing. So I know that you ideally like this length range, but ignore the layering, ignore anything that's happening with it right now. In a perfect world, how long would your hair be? Just the length.
In a perfect world, about this length.
Perfect. Okay. So about where you're at is like the ideal length. If we could tone this or kind of like work this length into working perfectly for you, that would be like a perfect world.
Yes. Now I will say, if taking a little off is going to help with the shaping you're trying to do, I'm not opposed to it. I just prefer it to be about this length. But I usually go maybe an inch higher than this, and once it gets down to about here, I'm kind of going, I might need to cut this.
Okay, so knowing what I know now, I'm going to break down a few things that are happening with your hair, and then we'll explain why I'm going to go a certain direction with it, or why I would recommend that we go a certain direction with it, and then you can ultimately decide if that makes sense for you.
Okay.
So first of all, you're exactly correct, right? And like most of what you're saying, actually, in terms of what's happening with your hair. So you do have layers in the front right now, but there's a lot of like bulk and choppiness to the layers, if that makes sense. There's still a lot of heaviness to the ends of it. This is where I want to get into texturizing and stuff for your hair, because your hair actually can handle a certain amount. But you can see like down here where it starts to get really choppy, like in this blonde highlight. You can see it starts to get broken up. There's a little bit of bulk like right in here. There's a lot of this area that there's a lot of layering. If we comb this down, there's a lot of layering basically from here down.
Yes.
Okay, so when I comb this out, basically what's going to happen is it's just going to be a straight line, kind of like the comb, right? We're going to comb this out, and that's going to basically be, see how that just, so that's all layering that's happening down here, okay? And what that means is, basic way to explain it, hair is all dictated. Layering is dictated. How short or long we cut layers is dictated by the length. Imagine, if I have your hair to this long, right, and you say, I want layers in the back, and I want them to go short as you can. Imagine I cut layers in the back that are this short. You're going to have a mullet. You're going to have this crazy little cap of layers, and everything else is going to be hanging there, right?
Yes.
So they need to be long enough to balance with this length.
Okay.
So we know if we're going to have hair this long, then I need to have those layers in the back a certain length to balance with that shape, to get us a good shape. If we want those layers to go shorter after that, then we need to bring the length up a little bit to achieve that and still have a shape that balances well.
Okay, that makes sense.
The next thing is from, let's say the shortest layer starts right here, okay? From there down, the amount of layering we have is dictated by the length. The longer if we get more layering, the longer your hair gets, the thinner it's going to look at the ends, right? If there's less layering down there, if it gets longer, it's still going to look dense at the ends because we're not layering all of that out. So we want to be careful or mindful about how we put in layers because it's going to create different, if this looks really thin down here, it's going to look really full right there because this is so shattered that it just makes this look bulkier. Right. And that's kind of what ends up happening with yours. You get this bulk, then this all kind of like laser, but it's really choppy. And you're like, why does this look so full? It feels like too full. And then it makes this little indent right here. And it's like, none of this is working and I don't know why. Yes. Does that sound like it tracks?
Yes, it tracks. Yes.
So what we want, here's the concern with this. And this is why I say we're going to leave this in your court as to what makes the most sense for you. There's going to be a little bit of backing up to go forward to really get that out. So let me give you a mirror. Here we go. And we don't have to, there's different ways to do this, so I want to explain it because you've got options. But do we see, okay, like when I turn that around, do you see where these layers, your layers start about right here. Yes. But you see it's basically, we're looking at almost one length.
Yes.
This is the longest, the shortest, the longest layer, the shortest layer on top comes right about in here. And then all of your layers from here down. So all of this stuff. And then you get a lot of layers right in here, okay? What I want is eventually I want this stuff to fill in a little bit. I want this to not be so layered. I want it to actually look more like this up here, up there at the bottom, so this doesn't feel so full. The thing is, you've got so much hair that it's easy for people to think I can get away with layering this a lot like this. But again, it creates all of those other concerns that we're showing you right now. So while your hair doesn't look thin at the bottom, if your hair was thinner, if you had less of it, it would look very scraggly down here because of its layering like that. But because your hair is getting away with it, doesn't mean that it's working for you. Yeah. Feel it? So what eventually is going to happen is we either take these layers out by one of two ways. We either cut it off, or we take a little bit off, we let it grow, we bring it up a little bit more, let it grow until this stuff just kind of comes off, okay? So either way, you're going to get to the same place at the same time, but you don't want to get to that place by taking this length off if it doesn't feel comfortable for you at that length. You know, you don't want to be like, oh, I'm going to fix the problem today, but now I feel really uncomfortable because my length is too short. We would rather say, well, let's address some other problem. I mean, let's get some of that concern out. We're also going to layer this up a little bit more up here, which is going to help as well. So let's get a lot of it out and leave you some length. And then next time you do the same thing. And next time you do the same thing until this stuff just fills in, right? That's a safer route. Or let's just cut it off. I don't care. And we'll fix this. And at least it'll be too short, but it'll be 100% the shape that I want it to be. And we'll let it grow from there. Do you see the difference in those two?
I do see the difference. If you cut all of that off, would it still be like below the collar, but it wouldn't be above the shoulder?
It wouldn't be above the shoulder. No, if you went all in on it, I mean, you're probably about in here at the length. Like, you're basically taking all of that stuff off. So let's not be confused. It will feel dramatically shorter. Right. It'll also feel dramatically shorter because not only would we do that, we would be layering it as well. So we're doing more in the front because we need to take out some of that bulk in the areas that it is and texturize some of that out so it looks a little bit less chunky, right? We're taking these layers on top shorter to get some of that bulk out of the bottom and so you don't get so triangular. So it's not just that the length is coming up, it's that everything is coming up, right? So I don't want to scare you from it. It would feel absolutely shorter. The shape, again, would ultimately function much better for you. But again, you don't want to be put in a situation where you're like, now I feel like it's just too short. It's a great shape, but it's just too short. I don't feel good in it. You can get to the same place both ways.
No, I think I would do it. I've seen your videos where you've talked about this mid-length where people are too afraid to go shorter, and then it just, again, gets triangular. So I don't want that, but I don't really want to come collarbone and above. I'd still like to have some shoulder skimming.
I think we can get really, okay, so I think this would be the compromise. Because I think we actually can compromise on this one, and which is funny because I'm usually the one that people think I'm going to try to cut your hair all off, and I'm literally compromising with you to like leave it a little bit on the longer side. But let me. The reason being is because I think we can get so close to where it's, let's say it's 85% fixed, and the extra 15% is really not a big. You wouldn't even, if I didn't tell you that it was still needed to be addressed, you wouldn't know that it still needed to be addressed. I think we can get there, and that 15% though translates to a fair amount of length. That you're actually like, okay, this length is much more comfortable. It's far more than 15% more comfortable. It's 100% more comfortable, and it addresses pretty much all of it. Yeah. There's just some, like, you can see like around here, right? You start to see a little bit more of that thinness in here, and like right on this stuff. So my main thing is I just want to get that stuff off.
I'm gonna say just do it.
Yeah.
Do what you want to do, because I would rather see fully what you can do with the shape. And I mean, it's hair; it'll grow.
This is true. Okay, we're definitely gonna get some of that off. We're gonna break up these layers a lot more. We're gonna take that a lot shorter, because that's another reason. Like, your hair is heavy. Again, even though it's fine, it's heavy. So having them even this long, while they're great because they're not too short for the length, they're too long to actually get lift. Yes. So we need to pull bulk out of here, but kind of the right way. We're gonna do a lot more layering in the front because you can, and we kind of need to. Okay. The bangs. I'm going to do most of that after we're dry. We're going to take them shorter. I'm going to do mainly that after we get it dry and styled, because you don't have to go a lot shorter with it.
They shrink a lot.
Exactly why I want to do it dry. So we don't end up with my bangs on your head after I took only that much off. But also because I don't think once we layer the front out more, I think they're going to react quite a bit different. And so I think a small change is actually going to yield a bigger change than we recognize now. Okay. And I think they'll function a lot better, and you might not need to go as short as you even thought you needed to. And it's not that we couldn't go shorter, but I think it'll actually work a little bit better if they have a little bit more length to them. Okay. I'll also show you how to manage them, like how to address them, because I think that's this whole front area. I would say that is probably right now 40% it's bulky, 60% actually the way you're drying it, and you were drying it correctly the first time. But there's so many little nuances that if nobody shows you, how are you going to know? You're not going to know. Like, it's so just ridiculously nuanced that once I show you, you're going to be like, what? I'm barely changing anything. I'm like, yeah, but watch, it does everything. And you'll be like, that was really, this guy's dumb. And I'll be like, you're right, I am.
Well, I have yet to see a single person you've worked on in your videos come out looking worse than when they went in.
Oh, we don't air those. What are you talking about?
They're always beautiful. I trust you. Let's just do it.
Welcome to the cutting room floor.
You're like, oh, Karen, we're not going to use your videos. Sorry.
Yeah. Ooh, this one didn't work out. Well, that was a day of nothing. All right. We're going to go ahead and we're going to get you shampooed, and then we'll jump on with the cut.
Sounds great.
Awesome. Okay, so I kind of lied. There is one cut, and that's simply when she goes to get shampooed. But it gives me the perfect opportunity to say something extremely important. If you like this content and you want to see more of this, I need you to comment below. Share this with your friends. I need you to like this video, subscribe, do all the things. Let the algorithm know that you like it so that then I can make more of this content. Because if you don't do that, well, I can't do this. So help me help you. Let's get to the haircut. All right, so first things first, you have, like we said, you have a lot of fine hair. And we were talking at the shampoo bowl a little bit about how hair like yours, not you, but people many times I think that it's just inherently like it just gets volume and like everything is good and it's just like kind of easy to manage, when in reality it's actually can be quite hard to manage. And part of yours is that you need the actual like product, the texture, the weight to actually get it to respond. Mm-hmm. And so length does that really well for you, right? Because it like helps hold it down so it doesn't just get fly away and crazy. Same thing goes if you go shorter, you just need to actually have product in your hair when it's shorter because it's going to get really big. Like your hair doesn't grow down, it kind of grows out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so we need a little bit of that control. Now the first thing first with yours is like now that we've got it wet, okay, it's damp. I want to comb through it, get the tangles out obviously before we cut it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little bit of an oil on it And partly it's because it's going to help to make the hair slicker so I can get the comb through it a little bit easier, be a little bit less problematic, a little bit less tangled. But also because it's going to help to give me a little bit of that weight that I want for when we start to dry it. So I'm actually going to work this in. I would work this in before I dried your hair on any given day. I'd put on a heat protectant, which we will add when we get to the drying process, and then I would add this. And a lot of oils are great. I'm using this particular one. This is from Way. And I like it because it's lighter. So we need the weight, but I don't want it to be like hyper greasy. Yes. You know what I mean? So this still gives me some control, gives me a little bit of that weight, gives me a little bit of the slickness to help it to get detangled, but isn't going to be so heavy that you're like, oh, my hair just feels nasty now. You know? I'll start by working it through the ends mainly, and I'm really just kind of coating over it. Like it's going to get tangly right in here. I get it very much so right there. And so I just want to really work it through them, and then like the mid-shaft ends, and then I'll kind of work it up through the top.
So you would use that instead of a leave-in conditioner?
I would use this with a leave-in conditioner as well as, I don't want to say instead, because the leave-in conditioner is doing more than just detangling it like this is. Okay. So it's got a little bit of conditioning qualities. They can be helpful as well. But yes, you could use it in replacement on certain days, but like if your leave-in conditioner is working really well, then you could add this to it, and it would just help detangle it. If you're not using a leave-in conditioner, you're trying to pick between the two, then you just have to ask, is my hair so damaged that it needs that extra condition? And if so, then yes, you'd want to use that, but I would still add this to it. Okay. If it's like, no, my hair's great, I just use it as a detangler, then this would actually function a little bit better. Okay. And then I'll just use this big comb here as brush. It's the volumizer. And I'll just start at the bottom and just kind of start working my way up.
That's going through a lot faster than normal.
Yeah, a little bit of oil goes a long way. And what will happen is we'll comb this through your head while I'm cutting it, but also it's going to dry into your hair, so it's not going to get like, I said before, it's not going to get like super greasy or whatever. I have to check. It feels like there might be a little bit of buildup on the hair.
Okay.
I could be wrong. Let me look at it first. I don't want to say positively there is yet, but... see if I can. Okay. Come here. All right. Okay. A tiny bit, not terrible. There's a little bit. So what you can do, here, I'll wipe this so you can see it. Okay. So if I go like this, right? Okay, let me wipe all this stuff off. Okay. So now we know that this is clean, right? There's nothing on that. But if I take like a section of your hair, just from here, and I take this and I'm just going to kind of scrape up the side of it a little bit, which I don't want you doing all the time, but just to kind of give, and there's just like,
oh, look at that.
See that? It's just the slightest amount, right? Just a little bit. And it's just like a little bit of a wax, so it could be that shampoo or whatever. Usually what you can kind of feel it on the hair. Yours is not as bad. Sometimes I'll grab it and I'm like, no, there's no question. 1,000% this has got a lot of buildup. And that's going to be really hard for you to get any kind of volume in. It reacts to certain products. You'll get a volumizer you put in that should leave it like nice and soft and have volume. But for yours, just gets gummy. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, I feel like there's tons of stuff in my hair. Yes. I can't do anything. That's usually the concerns of having buildup in your hair because they react like that. So in those situations where you usually like use a clarifying shampoo a few times, like get that out, and then we'd move to a different shampoo and conditioner just to see if it's not going to build up on it a little bit better. And a new shampoo and conditioner doesn't mean like an expensive one. It means like budget. There's budget ones that are great that don't build up, that clean just fine. There's store-bought ones. There's high-end ones. There's high-end ones that build up and are trash. So,
So buildup isn't just a thing you should expect with all shampoos. It's going to be specific to the product.
Very much so. Okay. Very much so, yeah. So when I was working with a company to create a heat protectant, and one of the things I told them is that we had to use silicones to help protect from heat. So there's a certain amount that needs to be built up on the hair a little bit at some point to create a barrier that protects it against heat and protects it against frizz. And we went through it, and I was like, no silicones whatsoever. We can't have any. And I had to talk to the chemist, and they explained to me, they're like, no, some flash off when it's been heated up. So like you have some that will just last. One shampoo won't take them out. They continue to be there. It takes a few shampoos, and they will build up. And then some that flash off when you dry your hair, they're gone. And then some that rinse off with the shampoo. So it's like, we've got 3 in here, but they're all gone by that first shampoo. But they need to be there to create the reaction that we want to create. And so it's like kind of understanding how they function. But if it's not one of those 3, and it does not shampoo after a shampoo, rinse out, then it just builds up. And if you use it over time, it just builds up more and more and more and more. And eventually, if you never clarify it enough to get it out, you'll end up with this waxy kind of residue on your hair that feels a bit like you're scraping the side of a candle, you know, and it's like, that doesn't seem to work. Right. And that's in large part why. So yeah, like I said, yours is not bad, but I feel there's a little something, well, I showed you, there's a little something there.
Okay.
Something to be aware of at least. I'll make sure that, if you're curious, I'll make sure to link in the description some shampoos and conditioners that actually work.
Yes, I would love to see that.
Yeah, well. Okay, now that it's wet, I can actually see what's going on. Like, this is when I can usually comb it down and get a really good idea of, okay, where are these layers? This is how you know your hair is fine. Jumping all over the place here. See how tangled that gets?
Yes.
Fine hair does that.
Really?
So, oh my gosh, medium and thick hair does not tangle as easily as often.
I thought it'd be the opposite.
You would think so. A lot of fine hair does this quickly. Do you, I mean, also there's some color on here, so that's part of it. Do you swim or anything like that, or do you have hard water?
I don't know if we have hard water. We just moved, so I'm not sure what we have.
Where do you live?
Florence?
Florence?
Yes.
Okay. Is it well water or anything like that?
It is. I should know that.
Does it stink at all?
No.
Okay. Usually, like, I find like hard water smells. It smells like iron, right? So it's kind of like that eggy smell.
No, we don't get that.
Not all hard water, I think, probably doesn't. But the hard water, the really hard water, like well water that I've been around does. I don't know if that was just like at Deanna's house when I met her. Like, I don't know why her water stunk, but it smelled so bad. I'm like, why are we showering in this? I get out smelling worse than when I got in.
You're going to get yourself in trouble.
It's true, though, right? She's laughing. She lived out like this, like in the middle of nowhere, like 70-mile round trip to get to downtown, and like this place was out there, and like lots of property, but it was well water. It was pretty area, but not conducive to like working downtown and living in.
There are so many factors that impact your hair. It's like doing a science experiment.
And that's just it, right? People want it to be like one quick answer, and there's just not. Okay. Now I see exactly what's going on. All the chopping, I'll show you what the choppiness is. Like, you can see it, right? And when you comb this down, which is good, because when I see the problem, then they're easy to address.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, it's like really easy to go, oh, okay, we'll just fix it like this.
Much better than I have no idea what's wrong with your hair.
Yeah. Although, you know my favorite kind of client? Ones that have problems with their hair. Because you know what all joking aside, legitimately serious. You know what the hardest client is? The ones that come in from a different stylist, right, that love their hair. And I'm like, if you love it, stick with them.
Yes,
Don't let me do it. Yeah, like you want me to recreate something you already love. I'm not going to be able to do it as good as the person who's already doing it. Like, they're going to do way better. Just have them do it. But if they've got a problem to fix it, I'm like, oh, I can fix that. You'll think I'm a hero. I'm not. All right. So first things first, I'm going to take this length up a little bit. And then we're going to walk through this. Like, you can kind of see how, like, right here. Let me show you. See how thin that stuff gets right in here?
Yes.
You start seeing length, it starts getting really thin, right? So you kind of have two haircuts going on. You have the haircut, that haircut, and then you have the ends that kind of stand there, right? That's why it's so bulky in here. Okay. All these ends aren't going to do anything. They're just going to look like frizz, right? And then you've got all this weight in here that's looking really choppy because it's really blunt right there. So there's that like blunt line underneath it. So we just need to go through and take a lot of this stuff out, soften those ends a little bit so that they're piecey, but not as piecey, right? So there's a little bit of break to them. And then they'll blend great. They'll stay off your face. They'll work off your face great. They'll work into your face great. Like, it's a very minor difference. But the first thing I'm going to do is just bring this length up a little bit because we need to get that length out of the way. Okay, let's start. Since you've got enough hair here, let's actually part this a little bit. You've got a ton of curl and nape too, huh?
I do. Yes, it gets very wavy curly in the back.
And then the top and the front you get no wave out of, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so the multi-textural is not so easy to diffuse curl into it. People are like, why don't you just wear your hair curly? And you're like, because it gets straight here and ringlet in the back.
I always wanted to have the consistent curls or the consistent waves, but it would be, it's wavy if you look at me from this side. It's curly over here. It's straight over here.
Yeah. So this part's going to go relatively quick. I usually, the cut is pretty fast, but then I want to get it dry, and that's when I'll finish a lot of it. Okay. So I'll get it basically the kind of length out of the way, get the things kind of addressed that, roughly need to be addressed, and then a lot of it, like the texturizing, the blending everything in, a lot of the stuff that happens in here, taking that bulk out, a lot of that's going to happen after it's dry. And I'll do it after it's dry because I need to see, once your hair is wet, it feels not as thick. Right? It feels thick, but it doesn't look as thick. But when it gets dry, it gets big. I need to see it on its big state so I know how much I can get away with.
Is there a cutting or styling thing that helps with that weird part that sort of starts traveling down the back of your head when you get older?
Yes and no. So there are ways to somewhat address that through cutting, which typically results in going quite a bit shorter in those areas. There are some techniques like, there's a technique where I use actually these specific shears, and you actually do something called a haircut instead of a haircut, and I actually like texturize that in, and it creates like a bunch of smaller hairs that kind of stand over, like kind of do this, and they kind of cover up. I mean, pros and cons to that. It works okay, but like so there are like little techniques, tricks that you can use. I haven't found one that works every time, that works really well, until you go short, right? Once you go quite short, then you can get a little bit more texture out of it. But when it's longer, it's long enough that it's going to split if it wants to split, yeah. So you'll end up fighting it more than you'll end up actually like addressing it. And it's almost like the stress involved in trying to fight it is worse than the problem itself. Does that make sense?
Yes,
like,
it does.
Or the bigger problem is you do all these things to try to address it that don't really work, but your hair ends up not as good as it was before because you're like, I'm giving up this to get this thing that I'm actually not even getting. And you're like, well, that's,
Yeah, the rest of me doesn't look good, but that part in the back, that looks great.
Yeah, and it only looks okay, even at that, because it still doesn't really solve the problem or the issue that I'm having. So that's cool. I mean, maybe there's a way that I'm unaware of now. Like, if you're a stylist and you know one, like, shoot it my direction. I don't want to pretend I know everything. But I just, in 30 years, I haven't seen one that really functions well. A process that's easy.
I saw one video of a woman who was showing everybody how to fix that part in the back of the head, and I thought, oh, this is great, I'll watch this. And then it was piles of hairspray and piles of gel and clipping it in the back, and I thought, well, I was hoping for something a little easier.
Yeah. And so therein lies the exact thing I'm talking about, right? Where it's like, well, now you have the problem of super stiff, crazy hair to solve a problem that wasn't even that bad in the first place.
Right.
This is way worse. Okay, you said that people have used razors on you before, you didn't like it.
My hair doesn't seem to like it. It gets very fuzzy and sort of just flies upward. I get
really
pieces and
makes perfect sense.
flyaways.
I'm going to show you the difference here because I'm going to use a razor on you, but I'm going to show you why and how. And I don't need to use this. It makes it a little bit easier, but I show you because I want you to understand why things are happening.
Okay.
So that because a lot of times I find people go, well, I had this happen, I never want to use it. I'm like, well, in some cases, like maybe it's texturizing or whatever technique it is. It's actually the best thing for you. It was just done wrong, but once you know how it was done wrong, and I say, no, we can do it this way, and you go, oh, okay, so it's the technique, it's not the tool, and then you feel a little bit easier. If somebody wants to use it, it's a good reason. So usually what happens is when people are texturizing, there's a few different ways, or using a razor. They'll either do this kind of stuff.
Yes, I've seen that.
Yeah, or they'll go like this, and they're stripping that hair away until basically it's nothing. And those little ends are so thin and fine, they just get wispy and they just kind of do whatever. Or it does the same thing if you just go like this, okay? Now, the reason that I'm using it right now is because I want to draw a pretty strong line from here to here to layer this out. For me, I can use shears. I can go in and cut it. I can hold like this and cut it. But it's actually just easier for me to put this in the hair, like comb this out and go, okay, well, here's the area that I want to cut. So here's my starting point, right? Just kind of go down this and go, okay, visually, I need to draw a line from here to there. I can just take this and just go boom and draw the line. And I'm actually using these like a shear. So it's actually, because I'm just cutting like this, the end is still totally blunt, right? Very blunt. But it allows me to just carve this out and makes it easier for me to functionally cut it. But I'm going through, it'd be the same as me going like this and slide cutting it down like this or cutting like this. I'm basically using them the same way. So it's not the razor that's going to be the problem. It's just the way I'm using it that would be a problem or not a problem.
That makes sense.
So we'll just go like this. This is just easier for me to go. Okay. And then if I see a piece, like I know I'm going to go back through and texturize these out anyway, a little bit after it's dry. So I'm not really stressed about these very ends. But if there was a piece that was like, that little piece is looking a little soft, then I would just cut it in with a shear and just clean that up a little bit.
Okay.
But this is just like, I need that preliminary quick, okay, get that bulk, that length out of the way. And this is just an easy way for me to achieve that visually. So then I could just go back in and go, all right, let me look at this little piece right here. Those are a little bit soft. Let's clean those up a little bit. Done. Okay.
It's already looking more blended.
Oh, it's going to be way better here pretty soon. Like, these are the little things that add up. It's not going to seem like a lot is coming out on this part of it, but like all we're doing is relayering hair that's already layered. So I'm not like doing that much, but this little stuff adds up really quickly. Like getting all these little hairs out of there. Okay. So we'll do that part after it's dry. All right.
Just before you started, you were pulling, kind of doing a part at the ear. Are you pulling part of the hair back, or are you just separating the back from the front, or?
Both.
Okay.
And good eye on that. So I do that because front layers, right? So basically where front layers start, if you get very technical, is, let me give you a mirror so you can see the back. Actually, I'm going to take you to this side so it's a little bit easier for people to see. Okay, so if you have layering, so you've got length right here, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so where those layers stop is right behind the ear here, okay? So all of this length is technically the length of your hair. That's the meaning that is supposed to be the length. If I have these layers, what I do is I use this hair that's right behind the ear, so this hair, as my guide. So this should be the same length as this length back here, okay?
Okay.
And so when I add layers, what I'm doing is I'm saying, well, this is the hair right over the ear, okay, right there behind the ear. So this is my guide. So all I want to do is go, well, how short do I want the layers? Well, I want them to the chin. I draw it like this. I want them to the cheeks. I draw it like this. I want them to the bangs. I go like this. And I'm basically just taking out everything in between. But the second I go, well, I want to start them here, and now I want to bring them, I want to layer it, and I take that length out, all of a sudden now it starts to look like a V in the back, and it starts to drag everything back. So it starts looking like there's really long hair here, and then all this stuff is really short, and it's like, why is this tail in the back? Okay. So we always guide ourselves. I just go, okay, this is always the hair that I don't want to touch. This is the length that I know I need to have, because that's going to guard the fact, make sure that I have a nice straight line, and then the layers start in the front. Okay. So I'll use this to guide me. And then I start right here and just go, now, how much of this? Maybe that line is going to look like this a little bit more. Maybe it's going to be quite dramatic, but this is my guide. This doesn't get shorter. And then wherever I want to connect it into, whatever the shortest piece is, that's one guide. This is one guide. And then what I want to do in between that.
Okay.
But this stuff doesn't get touched. So it's just, there's a lot of little, like, they're safeguards. It's basically just, this way I know that I'm not going to mess your hair up because I can't take it too short over here if I don't touch that. You know what I mean? Like, I can't. So, yeah, good eye though. Usually I don't see anybody that catches that kind of stuff. Now there's still a little bit of a corner on yours in the front. It's a little bit uneven. When I get it dry, it's going to be a little bit uneven. Like I need to finish it out. Okay. I'm really just, this is a very rough, like, just want to get the overall feel into it so that I can address it. But yeah, that's the overall reasoning behind. Okay, look all the way down here. That's perfect. So now, where do you guys live again?
Florence on the coast.
That's right, Florence, where my mom grew up. And when did you move there again?
We just moved out to Oregon in August and got into our house in November, early this month.
How are you loving it?
Oh, I love it so much.
What's your favorite thing about Florence?
The people.
Really?
Well, and that goes throughout Oregon. Every experience we've had, the people are so kind. They're so down to earth. Just warm and friendly. It was funny because we came in from California and I was saying we go to a restaurant and walk in the door and I'm used to just saying, you know, table for two, table for three. And they say, hi, how are you? And they want an answer. They want to chat. How are you? Okay, I'm doing fine. How are you? Okay, let's talk.
This is in Florence or California?
This is in Oregon.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That people are interested in talking to each other and they've slowed down a little and they're happy to be living, happy to be outside, happy to be experiencing the area. It's a really good mindset.
See, that's what we noticed when we moved to Redmond, Oregon. From here, that's what we noticed. We noticed that like people were like they're so nice. Like everybody is so friendly. Yes. And you go to places and you're like, you know, like even in Portland, if I'm totally honest, even like around here, there's a lot of times where you walk in a restaurant and you're like, you get the you're lucky to be here and you're lucky that I'm here to serve you kind of attitude. And I'm like, you can just be nice, you know? And then you go to Redmond and it threw us off at first because we were like, everybody's like, hey, how's it going, man? Great to see you. And you're like, have I met you? I don't know you. You don't know me. What? I'm like, no, that's just how everybody is. They're just nice.
So kind.
Yeah, it's so refreshing. Some of this out of the way, and then we'll get you. Once we get it dry, we'll get you standing up, and I'll make sure everything's actually even, because it's probably going to be a little bit uneven right now. Yep. Okay. All right, so here's the bigger thing. Oh, yeah. Okay. This is a good thing, because this is going to make it really easy to address everything. And I'm going to purposely do a couple of things here to show you. I'm going to use them as teaching moments. I'm going to show you what happens. So when it gets dry, it's not going to look good at first. And I'm doing it a little on purpose. I'm creating like bulk and lines in certain areas because I'm like, I want to remove them and show you how to remove them. Also because I can show you like worst case scenario. If you end up with something like this, you can get these texturizing shears and I can show you how to address these issues at home really easily actually. So it's like, even if you don't want to get your hair, you don't want to cut your hair at home, you might get home and be like, it's a little bulky right here. And I'm going to show you why that happens. And then you'll be like, oh, now I understand why. I can pull it out and see what he's talking about. And I can just do this and now it blends better. Okay. And it's actually very simple to do. And I mean, it's something that I show like all my clients because hey, feel free to like, do anything at home you feel like it gets heavy, like in between haircuts, it starts to grow out. You feel like it's a little bit bulky in a certain area. Like you can do this and it'll actually help. And I just kind of show you the limits on when to do it and how to do it. And it makes your life easier. Or if something is going wrong with a stylist, you can show them. You'd be like, this feels a little bit blunt here. Can we like lighten that up a little bit because it's been a little bit heavy? And they actually, you'll know and they'll know. So I'm going to mess your hair up so I can fix it. That sounds reassuring, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Good. And that way, if I mess up at the very end, I can just say I told you, right? Like if I actually don't know how to fix it, I'll be like, I told you I was gonna mess it up. I don't know what'd you expect? Time. Thank you. Okay. Do you always part it on the side that it's parted right now?
I do. I almost have started parting it slightly diagonally from this corner to that corner because of that cowlick part line that I'm getting in that back corner.
Okay. But then you stopped. Why?
No, I haven't stopped. I still do that.
Oh, okay. So you did start parting it diagonally.
Just a very slight diagonal, just to get a little more hair into that back corner.
Got it. Yeah, see how your hair tangles up like when you're coming through it after it's been.
Yes.
That's the mark of like fine, especially fine dense hair. It's not the only texture that does this, but I mean it's like a very common thing. If you've got a lot of fine hair, it's really common for it to get very tangly.
That's so interesting. I've spent my whole life thinking I had coarse-ish hair.
Yeah, no, it's. Let that be dry too. Lots of bulk there. Like I'm going through and seeing a lot of things that we need to fix, but I do want to just kind of show you. So I might address a little bit of this now. Now, remind me again, what actually brought you guys to Oregon from California? What prompted the move?
We went up and down the coast visiting for probably 10 years and we just loved the area, loved the scenery, loved the people, loved the ocean and the mountains and the trees and everything else. And we ended up buying a piece of property in Florence back in 2018 and then started planning our dream house.
Really?
We just built over the last year.
That's kind of dope, actually.
And then my daughter got out of high school and went to college, and we finished the house, and we all moved up here.
Okay, that's actually cool.
It is. We absolutely love it. We're so happy.
So what's your dream house? Describe it.
Great room where everybody can be in the same space together.
Love it.
And then bedrooms on either end.
Is it one level?
It's one level. Yeah, getting older, gotta
Yeah.
start thinking about the stairs.
I like the way they look too, though. I just think that there's something really cool about like long, sprawling one levels.
Yes.
Modern branch. Like, what's the overall vibe?
Organic, modern.
What does modern mean to you?
More like, I guess, Pottery Barn-ish,
Okay.
Restoration Hardware-ish. Not
like
too
it.
fancy, not too rustic, not too fancy, in between.
I like it.
Cozy, comfy, lots of textures.
I always tell Deanna I've got a dream. Like, I want more windows and walls.
Yes.
Like, give me floor-to-ceiling windows. I want to see very few of this. I just want windows, and I want to have a view. So, like, you walk up, you're like, cool. I want to be like a nightmare for, like, window cleaners.
Yes,
You know?
especially in Oregon because the outside is such a gorgeous picture.
Yes, 1,000%. Okay, work a little bit more oil through, and then we're going to start getting it dry.
Okay.
So I'm going to put a little bit of a volumizing mousse, and I'm really going to concentrate around the top. I'm not actually going to use a lot. I'll comb it through, but I'm not going to deposit it everywhere on your head.
Okay.
Usually I say to create volume, you want it on every hair roots to end. And we do, and on the areas where we want to create that volume, we want it on every hair root to end. But I don't want to create that same volume everywhere on your head. Okay. So I'm only going to put it where I need to create that volume. Everywhere else, I want basically just like a heat protectant and an oil or something just to kind of give it that weight that we talked about, but help smooth it out and actually not create more volume. I wanted something that actually lays it a little bit flatter. Okay. Because, like you said, you get big through there, so we want to minimize that so we can create the illusion of volume up here. Okay. Right? So I'll start with a little bit of this. So this is basically just a heat protectant / kind of like a leave-in conditioner. Okay. So I'll throw this in. Especially on this stuff up here where you've already got a little bit of damage from just heat and product. You know,
that's from me rolling my bangs, trying to style them over and over.
I'm gonna show you the easiest way to get them styled. Like it's so much easier than, I'll see what you do, and then I'll show you a way that's like, better. It's actually way easier. Probably it's way easier than you think it's gonna be. Okay. Like I said, it's a little thing that once you learn how to manipulate your hair like that, you're like, oh, and it just kind of does what you need it to do. It's much more functional. Let's do a little bit of. This is from Color Wow, so this is like a gel, like a mousse, so it's a volumizing mousse. Okay. I'm just gonna give it. There it goes. Come on. There it is. Okay. I don't want a massive amount, but I do want enough. And I'm starting it in here, and I'm working it basically through the top. Really getting it like in this area where I want a little bit of extra control. Okay. This is still a pretty light product in terms of volume. I mean, it gives volume, but it doesn't feel like there's a ton of stuff in your hair. You can get pretty aggressive with the amount of this you use, and still get a good amount of volume with not that much gumminess feeling or heaviness, if you will, to it. With your hair too, even though it's thick, right, there's a lot of it, we still need something to give it some control. Because volume isn't created by just, as you see, just because your hair's thick doesn't mean you're going to get volume. It just means it's going to get big. Yes. So now I want to control where that volume actually comes, and this is how I'm going to do that. Now I'll work this through with a brush. You can, a larger comb would work too, but I just want to get this through your hair. Now I didn't put a lot, if any, in there. Actually, there's really not going to be any in this area. Okay, so that I'm actually going to smooth out. You use a round brush, use a flat iron, or how are you styling your hair? Like, I mean, I know you use a round brush most of the time, but do you ever use a flat iron is really what I'm asking.
Rarely.
There's not a right answer for that. It's not wrong that you don't use a flat iron. Just out of curiosity, why do you not use one?
It tends to make my hair too flat. It just sticks to my, like it looks like it is now. When it's dry, it's just flat and...
So we're going to use that to our advantage. We're going to use a flat iron on some areas in your hair, and we're going to use a round brush on other areas. Okay. Because again, we want less volume on the sides, because you get the volume through there. So I want that to be really smooth, and I want it to be really polished, but I don't want it to get big. So we know that a flat iron will achieve that for us, so we're going to utilize that to achieve where we want it, and then we're going to round brush the top, so you're going to create more volume on the top. Okay. But if I use a round brush on all of it, I'm going to get kind of the same result from all of it. Does that make sense?
That's where I get the triangle.
Yeah. So all the things we need to do step by step need to kind of like work for you. They're either working for you or they're working against you. And we have the ability to really get them to work for you. So let's take every advantage that we can. Okay. So I've got that product work through your hair. And now all I'm going to do is I'm going to get your hair dry. So I'm going to dry it. You can do this one of two ways. You could tilt your head forward. You could do it that way to get your roots up off the scalp. You can use your hands because your hair is a little longer just to get your hair up off your scalp with your hands. So like for instance... You could either like literally go like this and dry it like that, or you could just do this and get this to come forward, right, like that, and get that to dry it, you know, whatever's easy for you. But the key is that this stuff, and even the sides, all through the front, you just want to get that up off the scalp, not drying down the scalp. Okay? But you still also want that airflow to be heading down the hair shaft. So I'm not doing tilt it off and then going like this so much. I'm doing this, right?
Okay.
Or this. So if I'm combing through it, see how that's still pointing down the hair shaft. It's not pointed like this
Okay.
at it. You know what I mean? Like it's a slight difference, but you just want to be mindful of where that hair is heading.
Okay.
So like since I know this side's going down a little bit, then I'm pointing it down the hair shaft like this. Then this is going to come forward, so I'm pointing it down the hair shaft like this. This is more of a concern when you're round brushing your hair, but it's just food for thought. It's like something you want to keep it in your mind constantly so that you don't just get like complacent and forget it, right?
Okay.
You can use your fingers to do this, or you could use a brush. If it's easier for you to use a brush because your hair will get tangled if you don't sometimes, you know, to kind of keep from getting tangled, that works great. If it's easier for you to use your fingers, also that works great. There's no like right or wrong way to shoot this. Okay?
Usually I'm brushing it just to try to kind of straighten it while I'm drying it too, because it'll get wavy.
You can do that too, but keep in mind, your main wave is going to be back here, right?
Yes.
And we're going to flat iron that.
Okay.
So it's going to be pretty easy to manage. So this back here, even if you just use your fingers, whatever, you can pull that out like that. It's actually not a bad move for you to use your hands in your situation and pull it, because here's what straightens hair is just tension. So it's this that's straightening it, right? As much, I don't care what kind of brush you use. If your brush just slides over your hair, good luck. It's not getting straight. But if you use a bad brush that's got tension, it's gonna work better than no tension at all. So your hand, you can do it too, but your hand actually has oils in it. So actually working some of your natural oils through your hair while you're doing that isn't going to be necessarily a bad thing for you. And we're again not trying to create volume through there, right? I want this basically to lay as flat as this. I just want it to be smooth, but like that's all I really need out of it. This is perfect, right? And then if I get any volume up here, it's going to look like there's a lot more up there.
Okay.
So yeah, if you can smooth that out, whatever's easy for you. If a brush is easier for you to do, then do that. There's nothing wrong with it. But just don't feel that you have to use a brush if it's awkward. And if you do use one, yeah, you can do this whole thing, right? If you're gonna do this though, use a modifier so that you can control where that air is actually flowing more efficiently. Sorry, I know this is all in your face. I apologize. Okay, look up a little bit. Okay. Get this out of your face a little bit for you so you're not. Now we'll just tilt it down this way. Yeah. See, I'm leaving a little bit of dampness around here, right? And I'm getting everything else pretty dry. So I want there to be about 80% dry here, but I want this to be pretty dry because I'm going to take a flat iron to it.
Okay.
So I want to get 90%, more than 90%, like almost bone dry down here when I'm going to flat iron it. But I want to leave a little bit of moisture on the roots up on the top, especially where I'm going to round brush that, and I need to actually use this to heat it up a bit, you know?
You prefer dryer plus hands or brush as opposed to like a dryer brush?
Me personally, yes. I think they function better if you, I mean, like rather than. So the thing with this is I can control where the air goes. The thing with brushes is I can't. Hot air brushes, the air comes from the center, right? So I don't have any control over. It's gonna blow stuff everywhere. However, if it's a question of I either use a blow brush or I don't do a round brush at all and don't style my hair, and I use a flat iron that doesn't work for me, then use the blow brush. But if you're able to do one or the other, and you're just like, which one is going to function better? 2 units is going to function better than the 1 unit. So yeah, it's very case sensitive to me, but this is just always a blow dryer and a round brush. You're going to get way better control on it, and it does make a big difference actually on the end result, looking not frizzy or looking frizzy, right? Okay. So now we're basically dry on the bottom, okay? And this stuff, and I might even dampen this down a tiny bit, but we're looking pretty good actually. We got a little bit of moisture there. So now I'm gonna actually flat iron all the sides, and then we'll round brush the top.
Okay.
Okay, so the sides being basically everything from your recession. Okay, this is a high recession on you, like, but up here, all that stuff, and down below. So everything below, like your occipital bone back here. So really, even this would go more like this.
Okay.
Down closer down like this, right? And all this stuff would be off. So it's basically all of this,
Okay.
that all would end up going flat iron, and then all the top we're going to round brush,
Okay.
and the bangs obviously as well with that. So with this flat iron, I'm just gonna tilt this off like this. I'll grab a section in the front. Let's come out of the way. Let's get this one right here. And we're just gonna create a very small C, which you'll see. I'm just gonna put this in and work it through. And I'm barely going like barely creating just a little bit of a C there. You see that? Okay. I'm gonna do this a little larger. See how slow I'm going over the ends?
I was just going to say that's such a slower progression than I would normally do.
It's 90% of what makes hair look healthy is what happens at the ends, at the end of the day, right? So going really fast over the ends is just gonna make them look unpolished. It's gonna make your ends look like they're not healthy. It makes your whole head look like it's not healthy. But if we just take a couple seconds to just go through the mid shaft at the same pace we go through the ends, and vice versa, then those ends are gonna look a lot more polished and smooth, and it's gonna feel like, oh, all of a sudden now my hair is a whole lot stronger. So it's a small thing again, but it's one of those small things that adds way up.
Yeah, I think I've probably skipped the ends a little more because of thinking, well, the ends are where I would have the most damage, so I should stay off them as much as I can.
Which makes perfect sense, right? That seems logical to me as well. And it is a catch-22 because yeah, the longer they're under heat, obviously they are going to be more damaged. But I guess the question is, would you rather them look damaged or be damaged? I mean,
Much better.
It's a terrible question, right? But therein lies the truth, right? It's like, okay, the fact of the matter is, for most people, right, if we're honest, most people aren't going to have perfectly healthy hair. It's not going to happen for most people. So really what we're doing on a daily basis is just trying to mitigate the amount of damage that we add and then trying to polish off any damage that's there. And sometimes that means that, like, in some cases, you add a little bit more damage, but in that process of adding damage, you hide any of the damage that you're adding and that's there, and it ends up looking way better, well then the question is yours, right? Like, would you rather it look damaged or be damaged? It's your call, you know. I wish there was a better answer for that, but there just sometimes there isn't. And like I'm going through these I'm going through this pretty quickly, right? Like larger sections, I'm doing this for a couple of reasons. One, like I think what happens, especially in the salon, is you go to the salon. I could take like very small sections I could go through, be extremely like, you know, step by step with it, make sure everything looks absolutely perfect. You're never going to get the same look when you go home because you flat out can't, right? And it's like, well, there you go. And that's part of what people pay for at a salon, so I understand that. In a lot of cases, though, like I want to kind of do it a little bit more something what you could recreate to show you how to do what you need to do and what we can do with it, right? Like a little bit bigger section because you're probably going to take bigger sections at home.
Yes.
I'm not going to, you know, like I'm not going to tell you to take quarter-inch sections and you're not going to go home and take quarter-inch because you don't have time to do that. Right. So I would rather start with that and be like, this is the kind of your case scenario. This is what it's going to look like when you do it. And then I can kind of address the cut accordingly. Right? And see if we can't address any issues that arise from that process. Hey, you know what? This sections are a little bit larger, so there's a little bit of wave. What do I do then? Well, here's how we hide that, or here's how we manage that, or you spend a little bit of extra time right here and spend less time over here, you know, so we can address the issues that are naturally going to come up when you get home and don't take quarter-inch sections.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's lovely to go to a salon and come out feeling beautiful, but then if you can't recreate it, then you just feel like a failure.
And I think the ultimate goal is I want you to feel beautiful, but realize that you can create the beauty that you feel. Yeah. And not be like, oh, well, this is when I get to go to the salon, this is how it ends up. I don't think that's a thing that has to happen.
Like every 6 weeks I look pretty.
Yeah, like I think that you 1,000%, like if we kind of show you what's going on and I educate you enough, you understand why things are happening, then you understand how to address them. Then you get to choose, do I want to spend this time on it or not? Right? And if you do spend the time on it, you get the results that you want. Now, I'm not, normally, quite literally, I would actually have my clients do this. I would have you like do sections, be like, I need you to see you do it. Like you need to, you know. I'm not having you do this part of it because I think you'll understand, like you can watch it and pick up how I'm using a flat iron because I'm not like waving your hair or anything. Like this stuff is pretty basic. Yes. When we get to the top, there are going to be some pieces I want you to do. Yeah. Okay. And I'll like show you, I want to show you exactly why, if something's working, why it's not working. Okay. How you need to manipulate your hand to create certain looks or whatever. Oh, that'd be helpful. Yeah, so if I can get you doing it in person, then I can get you able to achieve it at home. Time, babe? The other thing about going slowly over the ends is it doesn't just smooth them out, but it almost, I don't have a better way of explaining this other than saying that it's as if it makes them feel thinner, but not thinned out. So it makes them feel like less bulky at the bottom. Yes. In a good way that actually like makes them seem more like, I don't know how to explain it, like stronger, like just more geometric, like stronger, better. I don't know a way, but saying it other than that, it'll lay them in a little bit more and make them feel just more, I mean, I don't want to use the word polished again, but more polished. And just a way that, honestly, not even a round brush can do. Only flat irons have the capability of creating that kind of polishedness to the ends. Polishedness. Yeah. You feel me?
Yes, I do want a lot of polishedness.
Yes, polishedness, that's That's a really hard one to get. Not everybody's even familiar with what polishness is because they're still lacking. They're behind the game, you know. Me, on the other hand, I'm very aware of what polishness is.
It's a technical industry term.
It is, but I don't want to make people feel stupid. So,
Yeah.
you know.
How do you get that nice bend without getting the 90-degree angle bend?
At the bottom?
Yes.
I'll show you then. I'll have you, after I get this done, I'll have you actually do one section in the front without heat. And I'll show you exactly what you're doing, because I already know what you're doing that's creating that, and how to address it. Okay. It's actually quite easy, and once you see it, you'll get it.
Okay.
Yeah, and it goes for any length of hair. It doesn't matter what, like you could have chin length bob, you could have short hair. The specific technique that you're going to use will not change. So no matter how your hair is cut, you will do this exact thing with the flat iron, and it'll keep you from it'll give you the right bend versus the wrong bend.
Okay. Yeah, I usually get the wrong bend. Unless I go just completely straight, if I try to do a bend, I just get a bend.
Yep. No, I know. It's if nobody shows you, you'll never know, because it doesn't seem. I don't know how to explain it. You'll see. You'll see what I'm talking about. Okay. So now we've got. Okay. So all that is basically smooth and straight, right? So now we're just dealing with this top stuff that we're going to round brush. Okay. All right. With that said, I'm gonna turn this off. This is still going to be hot, so we're not going to, but I want you to put this in, pretend there's a section of hair in it, okay? So you're just going to put it up like there's there's hair in that section. Yeah, there you go. Now I want you to work, go through it like you normally would if there was hair in that. What would you do? Like this. Okay, watch your wrist. See what your wrist just did, what it's doing? Do it again, right there. So this is the difference. What you're going to do is you're going to put that in, okay? You're going to lock your wrist right here. So let's say your hair is going to start right about there. That's where you're going to put it in. And then what you're going to do is pull this straight down. Now, do you see how, if you lock your wrist and your elbow, when you do this, okay, just watch. See how I'm creating a C, but my wrist isn't going anywhere. But there's a big C shape because this is going to, body mechanics creates that C for me. So what happens is people do this, they get to the bottom, and then they twist it under. Yeah. And so it goes straight, and then they try to get this twist with the wrist, and it gives this little sausage curl at the very end.
Yes.
But if you just put it in and just push it down, body mechanic, you're naturally going to create a C. You can't get away from it, okay. Right? And so what you'll see me do, which looks crazy, but I will put it in, I'll take this, and I'll grab a section. So let's say we grab this section right here. So we're gonna flat iron this piece right here. Okay. So I'll comb through it, make sure that the tangles are out. I'll put this in like this, and I'll go through. And I'll go through this the slow pace all the way through, same pace, okay? And then when I get to the ends, I'll go all the way through the ends like this, and I'll keep on going like that. Okay. And it's as crazy as it sounds, it's almost like falling through a golf swing, and I don't even play golf. But it's like that. I'm so in the process of just creating this big overall C shape that keeps me from creating a little bit of bend at the very end. So you're just drawing it. It doesn't matter if your hair stops here, I'm still going to create the same bend. Okay. It's just a matter of how short it is. It's a matter of when it comes out of the iron, right? So, that's the same. So, same thing here. You just lock your wrist straight down. This side, same thing. You lock the wrist, and it's still going to create a C. To get it straight, you actually have to almost bend it out to get it really bored straight. It's naturally going to do a little bit of C. You don't have to put it in it. Okay. Okay, now we're going to round brush the top. The bangs, this is going to be probably the biggest part for you, okay? So I'm going to have you do this. Put this in your bang area like you normally would. Show me kind of what you're doing.
I would take a piece like this, okay, and I would do this, and I would go like this.
Perfect. And then the air goes like this, okay?
Yes. So sometimes I go a little bit this way. Okay. Sometimes it's just straight this way.
And you're doing that because you're going to style it back off your face like that?
Yes. Perfect. If I do it the other way, this way, it just sits on my head. If I do it back this way, I get this little flip that I don't love. So I do this side this way, try to pull it past the mid, pull this one this way and do this. Okay. Go like that.
So you're not wrong in all that stuff. You're creating a little bit of bend going the opposite direction trying to create a little bit of root lift to help you get a little bit of control.
Yes.
So we're going to change that up a little bit, okay? And we're going to do it the way that has not been working for you, but I think I know why it's not working for you, so we're going to help. What we need to create is bend, because bend is control, all right? So if you're going this direction, you have a growth pattern right here. It's a pretty strong cowlick.
Yes, I do.
And that's part of what you're struggling with. So when you go straight down, it doesn't really, so if I go straight down like
Yeah, it
this.
sees the wrong way.
Yeah. So okay, so there's two things, right? If I put this in your hair and I go up and out, then I'm getting a little bit more control on those roots there. Now that's different. If I go down and out, those roots are a little bit flatter, and now they're going to do more what they want it to do, okay? So just where you hold this is going to be a big difference.
Okay.
And then also, yes, basically what you're doing is the same. You go this way and then go back and forth to try to kind of go against the way that this is going to grow. We're going to do the same thing, but we're going to do what we call non-directional, which means that I'm going to take this and I'm going to point the air well like you're doing, but I'm actually going to bring it a little bit off this way since it really wants to go that way. Okay, and I'm going to bring it up a little bit so I get a little bit more bend in this area.
Okay.
So follow me. This is going to look crazy, but it's going to allow us to get control to do whatever basically we want with it. So go this way. Okay, so this is up, not down. And I'm pulling on it and constantly moving it.
Yes.
This is key too, right? So this is helping to smooth it out, meaning smooth the ends out, make them look healthier, but also helping me to get control out of it. Okay. And then I'll go to the other side and I basically do the same thing. Now I'm styling this like you're going to wear a heavy bang. You're not. That's not what I want you to do, right? But if I can get it to a point where it works like this. Okay, so this side, same thing.
What size round brush is that?
This would be like, some people call it an extra large, it would be like a 2-inch, 1.5-inch, similar, like, people call them different things depending on what you're going to get, but like an extra large or a large at least, right? Okay, so now if I style it like this, pull it down, we're obviously not going to wear it like that, but I've got the right bend, I've got control out of it. So now if I want it to come off this way, right, I'm just going to take it and style it off this way. If I want it to go the other way, let's say for some reason you're like, I want to go against the bend, right? I'm going to style it. I'm going to take it off this way. But I'm going to get it to do whatever I want it to do because I didn't tell it to do anything. Does that make sense? It sounds nuts, but when you do like what you're doing where you're trying to go this direction, you're telling it to go that direction. If it doesn't, you're kind of host.
Yes.
But if I just tell you, I need you to style like a bang, just non-directional. I don't want any control. I don't want any specific thing to make you do. I just want you to like lay like you're going to bang. Then when I get in there, I can go, okay, well, I've got the bend I need. All I want to do is just like maybe I part it over a little bit further. So I'm just going to take this and use my fingers. I'm going to manipulate it a little bit, and then I'm going to get it to go a little bit further over, and then I'm going to have some pieces that kind of break down like that maybe, and then maybe I want this piece to come down on this side. Maybe that's where, maybe I want this up a little bit. But I can make it do basically what I want it to do. So the misconception for people is it's the drying like straight down, like one, I don't wear my hair like that, so why would I style it like that? Or that your drying process was or the styling it down is what created it. In reality, more than likely what created the problem with yours when you styled it that way was that you're going straight down versus this way a tiny bit to go against the grain here, but also that you're going down and not lifting it up. So you weren't actually getting the right amount of C or bend in those roots and in that front hair shaft. And that's all of a sudden, when you get that bend, now you get that control. So it's really like such a minor thing, but you can see like, I'll get your hair to do what we want it to do, doing exactly what you say won't do that.
Yes.
You're like, I couldn't get, it doesn't work but you'll be able to get control, no problem. And I can play with it and like we can still manipulate it, like, yeah, it'll work, not a non-issue. So kind of keep that in mind. That's gonna be a really big thing. Straight down, like you just want to think, I just want to get this like, I got a little bit of straight down bangs all the way across. And then if I can get that, I can get this with my fingers to manipulate it and play and get it to do whatever I want like that. Like that's like perfect. So I'm going to round brush everything else, okay? The same way, so I'm going to kind of go through all this, and I'm going to style all of this straight into your face.
Okay.
We're going to do the same thing where you're like, oh, I don't want to style on my face because then it looks, we're going to style on your face to get it off of your face.
Okay.
Actually the hardest thing to do is style it like the Farrah Fawcett game, like you've been doing it without, to get it to actually have, if I get it to have some bend and come into your face just a little bit, not volume, but just a little bit of control, then I'll be able to comb this back off your face just like your bangs and be able to get control out of it.
Okay.
So we'll do the exact same thing here. And this is still a terrible haircut. I can still have to fix this. So once we get it fixed, it's gonna work even a lot easier. So wait for that. So again, round brush always facing down the hair shaft to make sure that we don't damage it when we have to. And I do the same thing with the round brush I do with the flat iron. You'll notice, and I do this subconsciously. Like I don't do it to prove a point. I do this on everybody, even if I'm not thinking about it. But I'll go do it. And then I'll like really like let it go out. So it's just part of my process, but I do it all the time.
All right.
And it looks insane. A little bit more dark cord.
So why are you not getting the big sausage curl at the bottom that I would be getting?
It's a large round brush, and I'm pulling it out. I'm not curling it under so much.
Okay.
So I'll show you. Because I'm pulling it down and through, right? And even when I go through, I pull it out like this. I go out. I don't like roll it up and then take it out.
Okay.
I'm like pulling that curl out as I go through the whole thing.
Okay.
Just a little tangle, right? So I pull it out straight, right? Like this is that tension, everything is actually straightening it out. And then I go through all the, like, see how like, so it's really, by the time it's getting dry, it's setting into end of the brush, but it's not really bent. And then I kind of do it. That would be too much curl, you know what I mean?
That's what I would usually
Yeah.
get.
So for me, I'll just go through it and I'll just pull it.
And that's what I feel like looks too dated.
Yeah. But also, don't stress about that too much, because even if you do, once I blend that in a little bit, we're going to be bringing it back off your face. So you're not going to see that curl the same way.
Okay.
Which is why you can get away with styling this in your face, because we're not going to style it that way. Right?
Okay.
I just need to get it in your face so I can smooth it out a little bit, right? Because that's the easiest way to get those ends smooth. The main goal with all of this is not to finish the style. It's to smooth the ends out, basically, and smooth the hair out so that it looks healthy.
Okay.
That's really like the kind of goal of where we're at. We're just like, let's get it all looking really healthy. Let's get a little bit of bend in it in certain areas, but we're not really like trying to like finish it, if that makes sense.
And I notice as well, you're not pulling it upward, you're just pulling it outward.
Right here, yeah. Up on the top, at the very crown, then I will pull that up a bit.
Okay.
With this one, I'm just pulling it straight up from the head, and I'm just like, because again, even in through here, see how where that hair lands? Right, it's all down here, so I don't need to get that really, really big. Right?
Okay.
It's just up here where I want to get a little bit more volume.
Okay.
This stuff. This I'll pick out.
And are you just grabbing random pieces, or is there any design to which piece you're picking up?
I would like to say that there's design to it. I'm pretty like random. I'll just grab stuff and go for it.
Okay.
Stylists are probably looking at you like you're an idiot. That's the worst, like the most unclean, like unsystematic approach. It's not like by the book, and it works. You
As
know?
long as it works.
Yeah, it's not my first rodeo. I've done it a couple times. Not like I'm gonna get all the hair. We're gonna be okay. But there is something to be said for like very clean, neat, tidy sections, right? And like
I think I tend to dry it based upon my part, which is probably a mistake because then I'm kind of flattening the part.
yeah, I mean, again, like it's so nuanced, right? I guess the thing is people can concentrate so much on stuff like that, but it's like, yeah, well, let's concentrate on the more important stuff. Where volume is not. Let's concentrate on making things like flat, when you lay flat, so it looks like there's more volume. You'll see when we're done with this. You will not have a lot more volume than you typically get on the top. And I don't want you to. That's not my goal. My goal is to create the illusion that there's more volume on the top. And by doing less volume, like having less volume down here, that's going to help us create that. So I don't want you to have big, massive hair. I want you to have hair that gets a little bit more volume up here, right? But I want this to lay in more and this to stay off the face so that it actually looks like there's more volume up here. Because you don't want walk around with a mushroom on your head. You know what I mean? Like, so it's just proportionate. And I know that like what I'm about to do to your hair is the worst thing I can do after I style it, which is comb through it to do the cut. You know, to finish up the cut. So it's like what I'm doing right now cannot be my end game.
Okay.
If I'm relying 100% on this to be the style of your hair, I'm in trouble because I'm about to ruin it. So I need there to be some foundation, and that foundation comes through the cut more than anything, and then it also comes through like I'm going to pull volume out of other areas because what I'm going to comb through right now and take volume out of, it's not going to hurt the areas that aren't supposed to have volume. They're going to be flatter. Oh well, it's only going to hurt the areas that are supposed to have volume. Okay. So if I'm relying on all of those areas having volume to create the shape, then I'm going to have a problem because it's not going to have the amount of volume I need, and you're going to have a problem because it's not going to last for you most of the time because there's very little you can do to get your hair to last all day, right? Like the volume isn't just all of a sudden going to have volume on top and it's just going to be there magically. Right? So I have to account for the fact that some of that's going to fall. So we need to address other things so that when that does fall, it doesn't seem dramatic. It seems like I still have the right amount of volume.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
A lot of this is usually it's a matter of addressing the area. Like you think my hair is flat, for instance, on top. But in reality, if we can go, well, that problem isn't on the top, the problem is on the sides, and fix the sides, the top gets fixed, even without fixing it. And it's much easier to lay this flat than it is to get this big.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It never crossed my mind to flatten one part to give the illusion of volume elsewhere.
And it's just not the illusion that your hair is. So to me, it makes more sense, and this is maybe not right for everybody, but for me, it makes more sense to try to get your hair to feel like it's got enough volume on the top when it doesn't have a lot of volume on top. Because then I know when you go home, you're going to feel like you have enough volume on top.
Okay.
You feel me?
Yes.
Whereas I can manipulate your hair on top to get volume because I'm standing behind you to do that. But I can't rely on that to stay. So you're going to be frustrated when you get home.
Right.
But basically, my theory is teach you the ways to create as much volume as we can. So you're doing all those things right, but count on the volume being out, like count on addressing the problem by taking the volume out versus achieving it.
Okay.
So then you, like what do I teach you how to achieve is a bonus, not a necessity.
Yeah,
You know?
that's good. I like that.
So now we'll get you back here. Yeah, we got to be cutting closer there, right? 15. Okay, thank you. Okay, so right off the bat, like even when I get it big like this, now if I use my fingers and I bring this back off the face, you see how, like, even though we styled it into your face, do you see how that stays off your face now, right? And this is laying in a bit more, okay? We're getting this to lay in down here more. It doesn't feel as big. So we're getting more of the shape that we want, but this on top, this is still flat. There's not a lot of volume up there, but we're still getting more of this because we're using the flat iron to keep this smoother and straighter. We're getting a little bit of bend up here. We're actually like drying it correct. I don't want to say correctly, not like you're doing it incorrectly, but do you see what I'm saying? Like,
No, I'm doing it incorrectly.
like we're getting control out of this. So this, and I'm about to do this side as well, but this is more of kind of what we're heading for. And it isn't that there's a ton of lift up there, because imagine if I actually had this much lift. That looks like there's too much. It looks too big. This is appropriate. Like, that's a good amount of lift. That's created by this. This is the difference. All I've done on this side is you have the same amount of volume, but I haven't made this lay flat yet. With my hands even. I've given it the ability to do so through the way we styled it, but I haven't made it do that yet. I haven't manipulated it, whereas I manipulated this side to get it to lay in. So because I did this, and because we have the foundation for it to be able to do this when I manipulate it, now we're getting volume where we want. This side looks flat up here. It's not. Same amount of volume. It's just that this is big. So if I take this back, right, come through this, and I actually use my fingers to kind of like, let's get a little bit of volume up here. Let's lay this through there. Let's get this in. Let's bring this in. All of a sudden now I've got way more volume up here, and I literally did 0 to this. There's no more volume in there. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that's the key. Is what I want you to take from this is to understand the fundamentals of how to create volume, but much more importantly, why volume looks like it is where it is, so that when you don't get the volume up here, you can get the control out of the front that you want. But more importantly, we can know, oh, well, this is the issue, not this. So if I lay this down, we're actually golden. It does more for accentuating cheekbone structure, jawbone structure, all that stuff, because these lines are all doing this, right? I still need to fix this, so we're still going to lighten this up and everything. But that's the basis for the styling process. For the cutting, I want to show you something here, because this is hideous, but you'll see in a second. My fault, hideous, so just so you know, I did it on purpose. Okay, see how when I comb this down, right? See how chunky and like choppy this stuff looks.
Yes.
Right? Like it's kind of like a lot. I want to be able to comb this down, and I want to see all that. I want to see nothing there. I want this to look like a perfectly smooth line. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to texturize the ends to achieve that. So I'll go through on this stuff, and I'm just going to texturize just the very end, so I can see when we comb this up where that comes from. That is from that really blunt, bulky line right there. So if I go in here and actually just break up the very ends with this, just a bit so that they're smoother. Make sure that this down here, it doesn't need it as well. All of this stuff here. So it's not a ridiculous amount. I'm not going deep with them, just the very ends. All of a sudden now this stuff is going to start blending much better. Okay. There's still like a piece. So this area is starting to blend much better. Here, there's still a piece over here. So I just go through the whole head and basically just take all of that stuff out. Just texturize some of those ends so they're not quite as bulky. So this is color right in here, but let me get some of this. Like, see how that blends in now in terms of like, you'll see colors change, but you don't see like as many lines, you know? There's just a little bit of.
So you can do that any place you've got just a chunk laying there, a shelfy look.
Yeah, I can just go in and I will literally just go in and look at it and go, oh, there's a line right here. Let me just cut that line out and blend that stuff in so it looks much more like this, where it looks much more smooth and you don't see as much of this bulk. So I have to go through the whole thing and do that because I put these in here on purpose so we could take them out. But that once we get to that place, then when you shake it out, you'll still see layering, but it's going to flow much better. And it'll actually end up having a lot nicer of an overall flow and grow out much better as well.
Okay.
So we'll go through all of this.
And you're just at about like a ½ inch up from the bottom?
You got it, just the very ends. So I'm just going out on this stuff and just getting all that bulk out of there. And these specific shears are not thinning shears, so they actually take out less hair than a thinning shear does. So I can be a little bit more aggressive with going in there and cutting it multiple times.
What's the difference between those and a thinning shear?
A thinning shear, actually, the blades are the same size as the holes next to them, so they effectively cut half the hair out.
Okay.
The blade is a tiny bit smaller than the hole next to it, so they cut less hair. So every time I go in, I'm not taking half of it out, I'm taking a little bit less.
Okay.
So I can go through and be a little bit more aggressive and not end up just thinning the ends out so much that they're just, essentially when you take off, a couple of cuts on 50% of the hair being gone with a thinning shear, you're cutting the length off. Like it goes, so I want to leave some of that length there, but I want some of it to be broken up a little bit.
Okay.
And that's essentially what these do. Any area where there's just too much bulk, I can go in and just be like, oh, that's just too heavy. I'm going to take the bulk out right there.
And what are those called?
These are technically texturizing shears, just as a general.
Okay.
These are, I'll actually link them in the description as well as this video. They're a very specific one. They're without question, my favorite textures. They're the only ones I recommend, especially to people that are not stylists, because they are more forgiving. But I mean, I've never had a client I didn't use them on. I literally use them on everybody.
That sounds like a very valuable tool.
It is I've used them for 30 years. They're my go-to shears. If I could only have one pair of shears, I'd figure out a way to cut the whole head with these. So now, broken those ends up a bit. And this stuff is and then I'm just going to go here. Now see, this is just too bulky, so I'm going to go and be a little more aggressive with this stuff. So this is where things can go really wrong really quickly, which is like you want to be a little bit careful, but you've got so much hair in there, I know I can get pretty aggressive with it. Those ends kind of need to come off, but like I wouldn't tell you just go in and start cutting away at like that. Like the only reason I get away with this is because I know when to stop. Time, babe. Thank you. And let's lighten these up a little bit. All right, final thing, you always go to this side. Okay, is that correct?
Yes, I parted a little bit on that side.
Yeah.
Just barely, though. It's not even a real side part. I think it's just like slightly left of nose.
Okay, we're really close. I'm gonna take this one area just a tiny bit shorter, just so that it matches a little bit more when it falls down, which you'll see. Because right now, if you even part it over this much, if these, you pull them up, this is a tiny bit shorter, but when they fall, because this has farther to travel, they end up falling about the same. So it ends up looking more even when you're wearing it. But if you pull it up, you might be like, why is this uneven? Because it needs to be.
I can't believe it just goes where you want it to go just because you pushed it.
I was like, there it goes.
It's insane.
And I'm going to finish it with a tiny bit of oil and a tiny bit of, so a little bit of oil. So it's the same oil that we used before. And I'm going to put a little bit of a wax in it. This has got a no shine and a little bit of hold, a good amount of hold.
You mix that with the oil?
Correct. I'm mixing with the oil to break it down a little bit, so it's not as sticky. And I want it to be more like a lotion almost than a wax, right? But I want to be able to get it to stick the hair together just a little bit in certain areas. So that's actually a little bit more than I need. So I'll wipe off one of my hands here. Okay. And I'm just going to start it down here where most of your hair is. I'm just going to kind of work it into the hair. Okay, now I got most of it off my palms. Then I'll work it through. And I'm really just kind of going over the ends just to give it a little bit of shine, smooth it all out. Okay, and then at the end, I'll kind of work through and comb it through with my fingers. Okay. And notice, like, I'm not worried about messing your hair up. I'm not worried about, like, getting it into shape and then like, what's it going to do now? Because I still know, worst case scenario, I know that I've made this lay as flat as I need it to lay, which is going to give me the volume up here that I need, even if this is flat. So I'm okay with it. I'm just trying to get texture and movement into it so that it doesn't feel too stiff, right? Mm-hmm. So now it's like, okay, let's get a little bit of shape up there. Let's lay this down. Let's bring this back. Let's give a little bit of shape right there. Let's bring this in. Volume is where you need it. We're getting some good movement, some good shape. Just a little bit. Let's do this a little bit. Get even a little bit of kick there is cool because it you can kind of work with it. Yeah, this is kind of like the bigger key. And then there. Does that make sense at all?
Yes.
Do you like that okay?
I love it.
Good, because it'd be so awkward if you didn't.
Actually, Justin, I hate it.
Good.
It's gorgeous. I love that.
Looks pretty, huh? I mean, it looks really, not because I did it. I legitimately think it looks pretty on you. It's like, how do you say that and not sound arrogant?
No, it looks great. I love that. Yeah, and I love the length too.
Right?
Yeah.
We didn't take a lot off because I really don't want to. I don't think we need to. I just want volume in the right areas is the biggest thing. So now, even if we just kind of brought this over, my mom always said, don't pick at it, it'll never heal. But I will pick at hair constantly. But like, really, you just kind of play with it, and no matter where you put it, you're going to be able to get it to kind of work.
I mean, I was just going to say, you're moving it all over the place, and every option looks good.
And that's kind of why I do it, is to get people out of the idea that you have, like, oh, it's there, I got to stiffen it up. And that's the point of everything that we're talking about, right? Is if this lays in, it's going to feel like you've got more volume in other places. So realistically, I'm not stressed about what happens up here because I know this is going to give me the illusion that I've got what I need up there. So we're creating the volume here by eliminating the volume there. And honestly, I think it's something people don't really talk about. I don't think they know to do, but yeah, like, boom, we've got texture and movement, and it's still. So I'm going to spin you around here, just look straight ahead so we can get an idea. Like this, and I'll give you a mirror. There you go. So we can throw that up, get an idea. So you still have a lot of hair. There's still a lot of movement, a lot of texture. There's still some layering down here, but you don't really notice it. It looks a lot stronger. There's a little bit less texture to the layers, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And all we did is round brush all this, flat iron all that basically straight, but it all just kind of blends and makes sense.
And no triangle.
And no triangle. Good?
That's awesome.
I love it.
I love it too.
Well, that's the number one. That's all I really care about.
I absolutely love it.
Well, thank you. So I'll steal this from you. Thank you. I'm so glad you like it. And I want to know what you think. You like it or not? I don't really want to know, but you can comment. But I mean, if you don't like it, don't comment. If you do like it, comment.
Yeah,
comment
good
below.
comments only.
Good comments only. Otherwise, if you do like this, make sure you go ahead and check out this video because I'm sure you're going to like that one as well. And I will see you over there. But thank you.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. I'm super glad that you let me do it. And
I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I love it.